Welcome to Read This Author's Corner. I am your host, Alice Maria, and I am so excited to have with me today author, artist, autism activist, phenomenally autistic, Ayanna Davis. Welcome, Ayanna. Welcome, Ayanna. It's so great to have you on Read This. I am so excited to talk about this, what you're passionate about. I don't feel these conversations are had enough, and I'm really excited for our audience to learn from you.
Thank you.
So before we get started in your book, I would love for you to just share a little bit about yourself with the audience so they get to know you.
Okay, sure. My name is Ayanna, and I'm an artist and autism advocate. I advocate for Black autistic women and children in underserved communities. As far as illustration, to date, I have completed 35 children's books. That includes books that I've done on my own and books that I've done with other authors and coloring books and things of that nature. Also a children's fashion designer. I do custom clothing for children. Sometimes I do it for adults, but it's mostly children. And I'm a former choreographer. I was honored in my hometown for the work that I do, the advocacy work, the work I do in the community. And that sums it up.
Quite a resume that you have
Thank you.
there. I come out of fashion design. That was my career for over 30 years. So that made me smile to hear that you're doing that for children. And I actually have seen some of your advocacy work with your children's T-shirts and things like that. So that's absolutely beautiful. Before we jump into the book, I wanted us to all start off on the same page with the understanding of what autism is, and then into the book a little bit more.
So absolutely. Well, autism is a neurological disorder. It is often called a mental disorder, but it's actually a neurological disorder. It affects every autistic person differently, and the way it works is it can affect your communication skills, your senses, your sensory overload. It can affect the way you obviously view the world, because this is a neurotypical world and we have neurodivergent minds. Some, just speaking from the way autism affects me, I don't eat a lot of different foods because I have taste sensitivities and smell sensitivities. So I can get overstimulated just by the smell of food or the texture of a food. I have light sensitivity, so I wear sunglasses a lot because a lot of autistic people have light sensitivities. Autistic people experience meltdowns a lot and shutdowns. It can go either way depending on who it is. And some people experience both. Social cues are not always understood. Being out loud places is hard, but a lot of us wear noise canceling headphones, which basically drowns out like all the unfiltered noise. But if I'm speaking to somebody, I can, I can hear what they're saying, but just like all the background noise, it drowns that out, because that's something else that can lead to a meltdown. There are non-speaking autistic people, which most people would know as nonverbal, but it's, the correct term is non-speaking. Obviously I'm a verbal autistic, but I do have non-speaking episodes and select mutism. So that's how autism affects me.
Okay. And my last question in the realm of autism, what do you think is the biggest misunderstanding?
In my experience, the biggest misunderstanding, and this came about when I was diagnosed, was that, autism wasn't something that Black people were. So like, even I didn't know a lot about autism when I got diagnosed, and I was like, I'm not autistic. Autism is for white people. So that's one of the misconceptions, is that autism is a white person's disorder, and Black people, especially Black women, are not autistic. A lot of times you hear about Black autistic men, but it's very rare that you um, see Black autistic women. But there's been so much progress in the past couple of years. More and more Black autistic women are learning that they're autistic, because a lot of times they're either misdiagnosed or never diagnosed at all. So there's been a lot of progress, but that was the big misconception that I saw and that I find with people sometimes when they learn that I'm autistic. And yeah, even when I explained to a friend of mine when I got my diagnosis that I was autistic, she was like, "But you're Black." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, I'm Black and I'm autistic."
Well, to be honest with you, you were the first Black female that was autistic. And just, you know, for lack of being saying this wrong, but I know this is how people tend um, to understand it, is like, well, you don't seem like you're autistic, you
Yeah,
know?
I get that a lot. I get a lot of, "Well, you don't look autistic." And I'm like, well, autism has no look.
Yes.
You may not know a person is autistic, but there are thousands of people who you might meet or see, and you would never know they're autistic unless they tell you. And you would never know they're autistic because there are a lot of undiagnosed autistic people, so they don't even know that they're autistic. I love that recently a lot of Black women have been hearing about autism and knowing that they're different and going out and seeking answers. It's not easy to get answers, especially if you're Black. Even with Black children, they are diagnosed on average 3 years later than their white peers. So there's, definitely a difference in the way Black autistics and white autistics are treated.
And that's very good. And I'm glad I brought that up, because that's very good for you to clarify. A major reason why I wanted you on was because I love to diversify our conversations around the way we see ourselves as Black people. Yeah. And the way the world sees us. So we're not this monolith of we're all the sameness. We are very different, and we have a lot of the same conditions that everyone else has. So
Yes,
I am
absolutely.
I'm very happy that you have stepped out and you are sharing that so other people can see and understand it for themselves. So you wrote a book, and it's I Am Autistic and I Am Phenomenal.
Yes.
So I love the name. So
Thank you.
can you just give us the understanding of why you chose the name, and then I'll go into your inspiration.
Well, people know me as Ayanna, aka Phenomenally Autistic. So, that's my brand, Phenomenally Autistic. And I chose that because I was trying to convince myself after being diagnosed as autistic that I was phenomenal, that I'm still phenomenal, and I chose that. So that plays a big part of why I named my book "I'm Autistic and I'm Phenomenal." Um, I just feel like there are so many negative stigmas and stereotypes about autism that, while I do touch on, the hard days and the challenging days, I touch on the joys and the good things, because it's not all terrible like it's perceived in the media. I find that the spectrum is very wide, and they always seem to touch on the same stories on the same part of the spectrum. So, we're all different. The spectrum is wide, and I chose that title because people need to know that see autism through this perspective, this particular character.
And that's I was going to ask you about your inspiration, but I just want to back up into the spectrum is wide for a minute, because to your point, because the media only shows one aspect of the spectrum.
Yes, the media, TV shows, movies. Whenever I'm always excited to see an autistic character on television, but it's always the same character, just with a different name and a different storyline. They don't touch on what would be considered high functioning autistic people. I don't like that label because it denies those who are considered high functioning with like therapies and services that they might need, because people might just think that they're too advanced for them. But they usually focus on people with higher care needs. Like when you read stories about autism, it's usually a person with higher care needs and what probably would be considered level 3 autism, just meaning you need more care needs and you need more help. But it seems like it's always the same character, always all the same characteristics, and we want to see some diversity. We want to see more representation of other areas of the spectrum.
A huge factor in me wanting to talk to you, because I wanted to be able to expose myself to another area of the spectrum, because I do know several people that are high care autistics. So to see someone that we'll call it low care autistic, because you're able to function a lot freer than people that need more care. I really wanted to be able to meet you and share your story. So, what inspired you to actually write the book?
Well, I started working on it in 2020. There were some books about autism out. There weren't many about Black autistic children, and there definitely weren't many about little Black girls who are autistic. And I feel like little Black girls need representation too. Little Black girls need to see people who look like them. Little Black girls need to know that it's okay to be who you are. So that's why I specifically chose to write about a little Black autistic girl.
And what would you say is some of the key points that you feel that a parent buying this book for their autistic daughter would benefit from knowing or exposing their child to your book?
Well, everybody's experience is different, and your challenges with autism change throughout your life. Some people have regression, some people advance, but it shows the joys of autism, and even though it shows the challenges, the main thing is reinforcement at the end that it's not all bad, and that we have good qualities, and that yes, you are phenomenal. Yes, you are amazing. Yes, you have good traits. So the takeaway would be that it's important to show Black autistic girls and anybody autistic that because I feel like people can buy it for their Black autistic son as well. Even though this was specifically for Black autistic girls to have representation, it's okay to show your sons that there are Black autistic girls, what they go through, what they feel, how they see the world.
So, talk to me a little bit more. We have the time to talk to me a little bit more about your advocacy for autism.
Well, I started out just basically sharing my story. I didn't know that so many people would stand behind me and support me. So when I noticed that I didn't feel there were enough Black women speaking for Black autistic women. There's some amazing advocates out there who I'm lucky to have spoken to, and I love their work. We all advocate in our own way. I find that sharing my experiences and speaking up for the things that Black autistics and Black autistic women and Black autistic children in underserved communities need, I felt that has been the most impactful for me. I speak to children of autistic children, Black and white, and they tell me that I help them understand their children better. So even when I don't know if I'm doing this right, speaking to a parent and hearing them say that, I'm like, okay, well, if I could just help one person, then I'm doing something right.
And I see that you are a contributor. You are a contributor to a book called Autism, Identity, and Me.
Yes, I was featured in that book because I am an advocate and an artist, and I did like a review of the book, and then they also featured me, just introducing me to people, letting people know who I was.
What else would you want the audience to know about your book, about autism, and how they can uh, be more mindful of?
What I would want them to know about my book is that while it focuses on the challenges of autism, it's not all rainbows and sunshine every day. Yes, it is hard, but there are joys, and we see the world differently. So this is just a glimpse into the way that we see the world, because I feel like you can learn something from everything. You can learn something from, just like you can learn something from a neurotypical mind, you can learn something from a neurodivergent mind. So that is what I would like for people to know about my book. You might change your views on autism and have a more positive perspective about autism, because there are always negative stigmas, and every day new negative stigmas are coming out. There's a lot of negative attention on autism right now. So I just feel like those of us who advocate, we really got to be on our toes right now and shut those stigmas down and give reinforcement to those who are seeking a diagnosis, but then they're like, oh, well, this is negative attention, and then I don't want that label. So I just really wanted to touch on the good and the joys in my book.
Let me ask you, if you don't mind sharing, when you say we see the world differently, would you explain that a little bit more in depth?
Well, our minds are wired differently. We are not wired like neurotypical people. And this world was built for neurotypical people, neurotypical minds. It wasn't built for autistic minds. So we're not going to interpret something the same way that a neurotypical person is supposed to. The way a neurotypical person is going to see things, like when I say through our minds and through our eyes, we don't see food like you see food. We don't experience sound the way you experience sound. We don't experience light. I'm under this bright light right now. We don't experience light the way you experience light. Overstimulation. I know a lot of people get overstimulated, but it is different for autistic people. Just a normal day for everybody else is a little bit more of a struggle for us. So, we're just trying to shed light on those things, and maybe people will be more understanding of autism when they get a better understanding of autism.
I I think what you're doing is great because again, getting that better understanding of autism and realizing that there are people that you quote unquote not might not know or believe that they're autistic because the media and the world has put everybody in the same box and
They have.
they
When I
and
first started telling people that I was autistic, and they're like, "Oh, but you don't look autistic. You don't seem autistic." Or I saw the movie Rain Man. You're not. I'm not like, well, I'm not like Rain Man. Every autistic person isn't like Rain Man. So, like I touched on earlier, you are going to meet people who you don't know they're autistic unless they tell you, because they might not even know themselves, or they just might choose not to share. Sometimes it is easier for people to not share that they're autistic.
I feel that it's really good to know um, because I saw one of the interviews that you did where you talked about the fact that quite often Black women are put in the category of that angry Black woman
Yes.
when that might not be what's going on. It might
Hmm.
be that they're just generally overstimulated or they're
Yes, I've
undiagnosed.
personally dealt with that. People used to always call me mean, and they'd be like, "Oh, she's so mean." And I spoke and I said hello to her, and she didn't say hello back, but I was literally overstimulated. I didn't understand the world pre-diagnosis. I still don't really understand the world, but I know why I don't understand the world now, and I know why I react to situations the way I react to situations. I know why I communicate the way I communicate. I know why sometimes I can't communicate. So, and also, like, since I'm considered high function and people don't understand, there are a lot of things I still can't do. I can't drive for health reasons. I can't cross the street because I have a cognitive delay. So I may think that I have 20 seconds to cross the street, but I only have like 10. So I can't cross the street alone. I have dissociative disorder. So if nobody's home, I can't use the stove and cook and do those things because I might dissociate. So, just looking at somebody and even just sometimes having a conversation with somebody, you still don't know what they go through and you still don't know their daily struggles. But, people, it's just been about, well, you don't look and you don't seem, but that doesn't mean that I'm not.
Yeah, and I really appreciate your transparency, your candor, your bravery, because as you said, there's a lot of negativity around a lot
There
of
is, yeah.
things.
hmm And
And
Black women don't always get the grace that everyone else gets. Like, again, going back to that angry Black woman, um, she's mean, she's this, she's that. I was actually diagnosed as bipolar and put on medication for it, and I'm not bipolar. Once I got my autism assessment and got evaluated, they found out she's not bipolar, she's autistic. And I had been on medication for bipolar, which did a lot of harm to my body, and all along I didn't even need it.
mhm. Ooh, I I get it. I understand. I've also suffered misdiagnoses, so that kind of hits a sore spot. So I understand, but I do really appreciate the fact that you're sharing your story. I I love the fact that you are reaching back and showing children the way that you probably didn't have anyone to show you growing
No,
up.
I knew nothing about autism. I rarely heard about it as a child. If I did, it'd be like it's something that only white boys are. If you've seen posters about autism, it was a little white boy in the ad. If you're at the doctor's and hospital or say something about autism, it was always white people in the ads, white boys in particular in the ads. It's even difficult for white women to get diagnoses. So um, not as difficult as it is for Black women, but they also have a hard time. It's just been recently that more women have been diagnosed because they're seeing autistic people online, and they're like, well, I relate to this so much. I'm going to try to see what's going on with me. And even then, after bringing it to the attention of their doctors, they still have a hard time getting diagnosed. Some doctors feel that in the past few years, autism diagnoses have been being given out too freely, which is a very unfair thing to say because people are entitled to answers, especially when it involves themselves in something that could change their quality of life and give them a bigger quality of life.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing your views. Is there anything else you would like the audience to know before we wrap up?
Just that you should never judge a person by their diagnosis. A lot of times, autistic people are like written off, or people don't want to get to know you or be your friend. But you should judge people by the type of person that they are, the things that they believe in, their morals. Don't just be like, oh, well, they're autistic. I don't really want to get to know them because you can be missing out on a great person.
I believe that, and I believe you are a great person.
Thank you.
And I am so proud of the fact that you are advocating for something so important for you and so important for the community at large. And I would like to thank you so much for your time and
Thank you for
sharing
having me.
this. Yeah. My pleasure, my absolute pleasure. And I look forward to doing other things with you as well. I would like to thank my special guest, Ayanna Davis, for spending time with us and giving us such informative information. Please go out and pick up a copy of her books and support this important work that she is doing. This has been Read This, Author's Corner. I am your host, Alice Maria. Keep reading, keep growing, and stay empowered.